Hey, not a bad opening shot, I hope. Hi there. Welcome, everybody, to what we call Cast Iron Wednesday here on YouTube, where a bunch of the smaller YouTube cooking channels have a cast iron video on Wednesdays. In my case, that means I've been going live now on YouTube for the past, oh, good grief. Can't believe it's been almost 2 years. Well, maybe a year and 3 quarters, especially to have some fun with cast iron, whether it's cast iron cooking or cast iron restoration or cleaning, or in this case, I guess you could say showing off my toys. So, yes, welcome to a kitchen or to a countertop at least full of cast iron pieces. And if not, and while there are several things that all of these pieces have in common, hey, guess what? Most of them are made of cast iron. But another thing that they have in common is that they all mean something personally for me, in that all of these, plus a few more, in fact, I found in the cast iron hunt, as the title of this series, as the title of this video says. Meaning, in this case, all of these pieces came at one time or another from the Brimfield Antique Show, which is taking place in Western Massachusetts this week. It is taking place right now, although technically I think just about all the vendors have closed for the evening tonight. But hey, there's always the rest of the week, especially Saturday. Yes, and so that's really what I'm doing tonight. Looking to tell a few stories to folks who may be interested. And just as important, I'm interested in seeing or hearing your stories. I mean, really, if you are into this kind of hobby, basically antique hunting and restoration and collecting, chances are you have at least a couple of interesting stories to tell in regards to what we call the hunt, the treasure hunt for vintage, in this case, vintage cast iron. Um, it may be a wonderful score you made. It might be a special family heirloom you inherited. Might even be something that you lost or passed up, though I hope not. Essentially, that's just it. We all have stories to tell, and that's what makes, well, now that's hardly all that makes this hobby fun, but it's part of what makes this hobby fun. It would be the hunt. And having said that, let's see. Hi there. We've got folks here already tonight. So, as always, thank you so much for showing up. Hello, Rick Stumbow and Pip Gorn and Pat Z. And hello, Cooking with Bobby Joe. Yeah, I did see your live last week, Bobby Joe. And Clico and Mike DeMars. Hi, good evening. Good evening. Kenneth Kemianiki. I still can't pronounce it right. Back from the hospital. And from the Flash 1499. Yeah, I'm looking forward to my Brimfield video too. I'm a little confused still at this point of how it's going to turn out. Yeah, because I've already done two carefully edited and produced videos, both of which I am very proud of, about doing cast iron hunting at Brimfield. What will happen this time? Well, we don't know yet. My hope is to head out there to Brimfield on Saturday to spend the day browsing and having fun. What's up? Oh, oh, sorry. Okay, yeah, something. Oh, yeah, okay, yeah, okay. Sorry, something important. Yeah, it's necessary to interrupt the live video for this.
I'm
So
sorry.
no,
Oh,
no,
oh, don't be like that.
no. I'm
You
sure they.
he's sitting very nice in his paw.
Yeah,
Which he never does.
yeah.
He's looking at me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, okay. I'm
Okay.
not starting with the treats either. Here you go, bud.
Yeah. Well, we could see what's the most important thing in this place.
Okay, no. Sorry, guys.
Yeah. Shit.
Sorry.
Okay. Anyway.
Been in trouble.
That's all right. Okay, having said that, having done an unpaid commercial for Temptations, the cat treats your cats will eat, that they also call kitty crack. Anyway, hello, Robert Lane. The hunt for vintage cast iron is always on. Keep your vids going, thank you. I hope so. Yes, nothing like a stomach bleed to ruin your week. Ouch, sorry to hear that, Ken. And Val's Black Cat's rule seems like everybody, yeah, love Papa Dan and Papa Dan. Glad to hear you're home. Hi, Jamie, says Val's Black Cats. Yeah, hi, Val. and my cat loves those too. I think it would bury a body for those. Mine probably already have, at least for mice. Yeah, kitty crack, your cats are loved. Yes. But yes, as we said, these are I mean, I have a confession to make. I have something of an obsession which folks call cast ironitis, which is pretty much something of a mental disease that results in the accumulation of more and more cast iron. And I've tried to quit, but have not had much luck yet, because they say the first step to recovery is to admit you have a problem. Well, guess what? I don't have a problem, folks. Yeah. So, but yeah, that's right. Looking to start some meetings in the area. Yes, exactly. Cast ironitis anonymous. But no, my point is that this selection here, first of all, as I mentioned already, I am lucky enough to live within driving distance of Brimfield. And so that means I've managed to acquire this collection of finds over the past several years now. I do believe I'm going on, in fact, just about 10 years of going to Brimfield. I haven't gone there every year, and not every time I've gone there have I really scored something interesting, but it's certainly built up. So, yes, is that a bunt or a Nordic ware? I guess that's one thing I could start with. I mean, as I said, there's a story behind each and every one of these. In this case, it happens to be related to Brimfield, and that's what I'm hoping. I'm encouraging folks as well to tell your stories too. Not just to Brimfield, because there's a whole lot more going on when it comes to the hunt. There are estate sales. There down there in the south, you have those highway yard sales, the world's longest yard sale, the 127 yard sale. And I'm sure at least some of you may have found something in those areas. There are also other antique fairs and malls and the like. So this isn't only about Brimfield. I'm talking about Brimfield because it happens to be, well, yeah, one of the largest in the world. It's a great place to hunt for cast iron, and it's close to me, and this has resulted in it. You had asked already, is that a bunt or a Nordic ware? Well, it is technically neither, but it is definitely cast iron. There is no question about that. This is based on an older 19th century piece. I'm not so sure that this is actually 19th century or not, but either way, it's definitely European in origin. And oh yeah, as I said, I can feel the weight already. It is definitely a cast iron cake pan, and in fact, I managed to acquire this one at Brimfield just last September rather. And in fact, it was the centerpiece of that one of the videos I've done about it. If you look up "Return to Brimfield," you'll see this. And this, in fact, happened to be one of the best cast iron scores I think I have ever made. In that, I managed to stumble across this with a price tag of $35. And when I took this to the vendor, he said $20. So I didn't even have to haggle. I was certainly quite happy to score that. It did, in fact, have a Nordic ware tag on it. But as I said, this is definitely cast iron. It is not aluminum. There is absolutely no doubt about that. So that one happened to be, as I said, an incredible score, one I'm very, very glad to have made. Again, there are stories behind all of these pans here. So, and yes, like Rick Stumbow, you just got the Lady Liberty and the American flag skillets. Well, there you go. You've got a couple of collector's items now, something that you may end up keeping for the rest of your life. You never know what could happen. May end up being passed on to family or friends, or who knows. But nonetheless, those new pans that came out from Lodge, those are nice. Those very, very nice design on the bottom, definitely. Papa Dan, seen it today for the first time. Oh yeah, yeah, congrats on getting it, and you too, Rick Stumbow, for getting your skillets. So, and the Walking Liberty, yes, that's the other one. So, but as I said, the point being is that the hunt is so much fun, especially because it gives you memories While I do not exactly have a photographic memory, and I could not tell you every detail about finding all of this stuff over the past 10 years, I could pretty much point to any one. And I'm pleased to say at this point that I can remember the circumstances that led up to my finding these pieces. In fact, if I scroll over this way and move down a little bit, hey, look at this. We even have a few more yet. These are a few skillets that I came across at Brimfield at one time or another. Flash 1499. Ohio has the Springfield Extravaganza at the Clark County Fairgrounds the weekend of May 21st. So, in other words, you have about another week or so. What will probably happen is at least one or two of the Brimfield vendors will, in fact, head to your area. So, the bunt pan looks like the Carolina cooker pan. I think the Carolina cooker pan is actually a little bit bigger than this. This is somewhat smaller than the Lodge fluted cake pan. So, but it's definitely very heavy. And it also has a very smooth surface, which is another reason why I know this is not the Carolina cooker pan. Interesting thing about that pan, at least to me, is that I consider that to be an anomaly, and that all those folks who say that they love grinding down the rough surface of their cast iron pans. Well, imagine taking a Dremel or a grinder to that Carolina cooker pan and see how long it takes to get that one nice and smooth. I wonder what brand is that fluted cake pan. I have no idea. This is essentially unknown, and I really am not able to determine it. The design of it, though, there is a group on Facebook called Cast Iron Bunt Bakers Anonymous, where folks who use and own and collect the cast iron cake pans, they've got quite a community going there, and they have names for all of these designs of pans. This one, in fact, is generally called the Monarch, because apparently there's a series of at least 3 royalty pans, including a king, a queen, and this one is the Monarch. So, which suits me just fine, because the cakes I've made in this have certainly turned out to be fit for a king. So I certainly don't have, yeah, so I don't have any complaints about that. Well, yeah, technically, I guess I am a lord. So yes. Um, Missed last week, and what does that say? This was Clico. I was in Washington State visiting mom, who turned 100 on May 2nd. I hoped to bring home her cast iron Eagle-Skiver pan from the 50s, but she still won't give it up. Kudos to her. I mean, of course, on one hand, yeah, there's always a possibility you could end up inheriting it, but that, of course, is, yeah, I'm saying that very lighthearted, naturally. I mean, congratulations to your mom's 100th birthday. So, in the end, nonetheless, though, that Eagle Skiver pan will definitely be an heirloom and something good to remember her by, too, when that time comes. I know, because I've got something like that, a couple of things, in fact, from mom. So, even though I did not get this from Brimfield, let me pull this one off the shelf. Um, Here it is. And that would be this particular piece. And folks probably have seen this. I've actually seen this one on sale at Brimfield. It is, in fact, the Griswold so-called square egg skillet. Although technically, Griswold experts would say this is probably the Griswold Wagner skillet, because notice it does not have the Erie logo on it. It does not say Erie, Pennsylvania. And so Griswold experts think that Griswold pans that do not have that come from the later series, post 1957, after the Griswold foundry shut down and was moved to the Wagner foundry. Nonetheless, this was a pan that my grandmother had and used very frequently, and so I managed to find this one as well, and give this to my mom as a present in on to remember my grandmother, in fact. And then, well, mom did pass away 2 years ago, and I've since inherited this pan. So when it comes to inheriting family cast iron, I will speak from experience, and I miss mom very much. But I'm very, very glad to have this. And in the end, I think that Ebel Skyver pan will hopefully help make you feel happy too. Okay, now, as I was saying, there are stories behind each and every one of these, for instance. Perhaps an English-made fluted cake pan. Well, you never know. What is that one with the writing on the lid? You must be talking about this one, and you're gonna love the look of this when you see it, because it is a name that folks in the cast iron community know pretty well. This is a Griswold #9 lid. And here is one of my stories, in fact. Now, again, this was at Brimfield, mind you, several years ago. I don't remember the exact year. But that was the year when I acquired 2 gate marked skillets that I'm still very glad to own and use. I've shown these off, in fact. It was there. One of the vendors had a pile of rusty cast iron, and of course, that's the type of thing you want to look for, especially at Brimfield, to see if you can find any bargains. And what I found was this lid was, in fact, sitting on this pan here. I've shown this pan before. This is an unknown gate marked 19th century pan. Oops, gotta be careful. Which we call the Fancy Handles series. These are very light, very thin, extremely thin. Considering the size of this is actually a very, very light and thin cast iron pan. Now, the interesting thing was that the lid was actually sitting right on this pan, and it's pretty much a perfect fit. I'm thinking that the vendor must have actually put this lid on the pan just because they were a good match, even though there's probably a few decades of difference between them. So I took both of these out and went to the vendor, and I couldn't believe it when he said $25. And he said, most of that is actually for the lid. So he didn't even care about the gate mark pan. He was mostly just selling the lid. So, hey, I'm certainly not arguing with that. I mean, besides the fact that it's a Griswold lid, the fact that I've got a gate mark pan that actually has a lid that fits it perfectly. So I have no idea if I will ever find a #9 Griswold Dutch oven. I'm not even sure I'm interested in a Griswold #9 Dutch oven. I mean, as you've seen, I already have a lot of Dutch ovens. However, I am quite pleased to have this particular set of the Griswold lid. And that's what I mean by stories. There are stories there for just about now. There are stories behind everything here, and I'm sure you folks have stories as well. Feel free to type in some of your favorite stories. I mean, there are people here in this live chat. We're already up to 52 people, 54. Thank you very much. Who would certainly like to hear things like that. So sounds like a fun time you had. Yes, indeed. I find them whenever I can. Yeah, and you never know when you're going to. Is that the gated fancy handle that you had fixed? Yes, that is exactly it. In fact, this was after I took this pan home and cleaned it up. I found this pan had not one but 2 cracks in it. One of them was actually pretty large, in fact. And I did not want to give this pan up, and I actually took the time to find a welder who was able to weld this pan, this. Yes, I am. Yeah, I guess.
Somebody remembered that story from another show.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yes. Yes.
You guys are the best.
Yeah.
You guys are absolutely the best. I appreciate you guys.
Yeah.
Appreciate you guys so much to remember something from a prior live, and to remember that there was a certain pan that there's a fancy handle pan that had a fix. That just wow. You guys are the best.
Yeah, thank you very much, Louis J. That's what she's saying. But yes, I actually did take the time to have this pan welded back together, and it has served me well. I treat it very delicately, but it has indeed served me well. And that's the other thing. It was at that very same, and I still don't remember the year, but that very same Brimfield. Earlier on that day was when I happened to come across my other gate mark pan, which would be lucky #7. I've shown this one off a number of times as well. For the longest time, I considered this my cornbread pan, and I would cook almost nothing but cornbread in it. I've since kind of broken that rule and made other things in it, but I'm still would want to reach this first if I'm going to make cornbread. What I remember about this, well, two things. This one also turned out to be cracked. And you see, I had both of those pans welded pretty much on the same job. But what I remember about this is one thing about Brimfield. It seems like almost every time I go to Brimfield, I find the parking space and pay for it. I get out of the car and head in. Almost immediately, within the first few minutes, I almost always seem to stumble across something that I want to get. And even though I've spent several hours there on a lot of days, it's almost the case where within the first few minutes, something catches my eye and saying, I think I should really get that. And this was one of them. So, and I certainly do not regret it. I don't know why, if it's why that always seems to happen during the first few minutes. Maybe it's because I'm really just, again, getting used to the climate or the environment there, meaning that there's all of this great cast iron to be had. And so it's like things look really, really valuable and one of a kind, and I better grab it right away. And then after several hours of browsing through all that amazing cast iron, what looked incredible in the morning may look kind of blasé by the afternoon. However, I have not regretted that. I can think of a couple of other things as well. One year, in fact, I think it was 2018, the year I made my first Brimfield video. That was when, within the first few minutes, I stumbled across a cast iron trivet. Now, technically, this is just some kind of a design that I think is supposed to be just that, a fancy design or anything. But those of us whose minds have been poisoned by the internet will certainly recognize none other than the flying spaghetti monster. So, yes, I have been touched by his noodly appendage. And it was especially because of that I could not resist picking up this trivet. In fact, it had a $15 price tag, and the guy took $10 for it. The flying spaghetti monster, you mean?
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's a completely different subject, and I would strongly urge you to do a little bit of Googling to find out about that. That was one thing that I found within just the first few minutes. There was another year at Brimfield where, again, just in the first few minutes, I came across this, a sad iron by Wappick. I don't know if it's Wappick or Wapak. I've heard it pronounced both ways, and I tend to still pronounce it Wappick. But anyway, yeah, if I remember right, this one in particular, in fact, I saw it and it had a $10 price tag, and I put it down and walked away. And then maybe a couple of hours later, it just kept nagging at me. And I kept saying, go and get it. Go and get it. You will regret it. You will regret it. So I headed back. And yes, fortunately, it was still there. And so I grabbed it for $10. So, because that's the thing, of course. How to describe the, the feeling you get when you come across something amazing and you just know, oh my God, this is really good. I should get it. But oh man, am I going to regret it? And I guess what I like to do is I step back and kind of think to myself, be honest to yourself. In 6 months or 6 years, will you regret not getting this? And there have been a couple of times where I actually put something down and walked away, and I did not regret it. And there have been some times when I walked away and I did regret it and still regret it to this day. So, hi, Rachel Stratman. My mom had enough old Griswold number 12s for each of us siblings to get one, but I have the monster Griswold skillet that belonged to my grandmother. It's so huge, I've never even used it. Well, congratulations. Is that like a Griswold number 14 or maybe even one of the number 20 huge round Griswold skillets? I believe they call those hotel skillets. I think the idea was that they were mostly used in big stoves in hotels. Honey Badger just got here. What did I miss? Well, not much. I'm just pretty much talking to look like a squid. And as I said, I'm spoiled by internet memes, which is why I call this the flying spaghetti monster. So, okay, how come we don't see Jamie? Because Jamie, unfortunately, oh, yeah, yeah, she says I have a face made for radio. So, well, yeah, she is shy. She also does have something of a bruise. Unfortunately, she kind of tripped completely accidentally, and unfortunately, she has a bruise on her cheek um, from landing the wrong way. So, but nonetheless, she's doing okay otherwise. So, and Rachel, it's the number 20. I believe she used to cook outdoors and on a wood stove. Yes. And that is one good use for all of those huge number 12, number 14, number 20 pans. Bring it into the outdoors, and it really makes a really good griddle, especially since it has high sides and it's less likely to spill things. Of course, on the other hand, considering how rare and valuable there is, would you want to bring a Griswold number 20 on a camping trip? Yeah, that's why one reason why Asian cast iron is not completely worthless. Right. Wapak, it says, is the correct way. Wapak? Well, I'll have to try to remember that. And hello, Sam Cook and Rachel. Oh, no, we said Rachel already. Yeah. Hello, Neshus River Catfishing. First time watching live. Well, I can only hope you like it. And yeah, sweet collection. But yes, that's what I mean. It's like there are stories behind each and every one of these. I like, for instance, let me move back over this way. And we've got a pile of pans right here. No, I did not get all of these at once. That's the point. I stumbled across them one at a time here. Like, for instance, here's one that some collectors may recognize, an S-Series Birmingham Stove and Range, number 3S. I mean, the handle is unmistakable. Although, take a close look at the handle and take a look at this. I'd have to say it looks like a pretty poor job was made casting this one, actually. So, nonetheless, it is definitely a BSR, and it's part of their S series, which they made especially with different, slightly smaller sizes in order to compete with another foundry. The name of that other foundry has not yet been determined. Also interesting is that this is not a handwritten 3S. This one actually looks like typewritten. I'm wondering if this may be one of the later or last editions of the S series, but I have no way to prove that. I stumbled across this. The vendor, who actually had a table full of ridiculously expensive cast iron, as most of the large cast iron vendors do, had a throwaway table, and he was selling this for $5. So I was more than happy to take this off his hands for $5. More about that guy I am not going to say. Actually, yeah, that's one thing. I was considering earlier this week. I mean, I knew I was going to do a video tonight about Brimfield. And I was considering whether or not I might try contacting one of the Brimfield cast iron vendors and do this live video tonight with them. And then I realized that would not be fair. I mean, consider everything I have been saying about antique vendors at Brimfield and antique malls. And you know what I often say? How, oh my God, this is a ripoff. Oh, this is expensive. Oh, I'd never pay for this. And I say that again and again because for me, anyway, that's the truth. I'm a cheapskate. When I go to Brimfield, for instance, I know I'm going to see things like a Griswold large logo number 14, and it will probably have a price of anywhere between $600, $900, $1,000, and no way am I going to pay that. And it would not be fair for me to sit down and have a nice chat with with one of the vendors there, who no doubt would be a really nice guy too. I'm sure we share our love of cast iron, but I'm not sure if it would be fair to him for me to say things like that, because obviously he would want to show off his stuff. And as I said, it's like, what can I say? It's like, oh yeah, this is all great stuff, but I'm not buying it. Why not? The prices are too high. So I am not interested in causing difficulty or drama like that. Anyway, that's only one. Right underneath this is in a couple of instances, I actually found maybe a stray pan here and there that some mom and pop vendor was selling. And even though the Wagner logo is still is well known and usually jacked up, it was still interesting to acquire a number 4 Wagner, for instance. I don't remember how much I paid for it, but knowing me, I don't think I paid too much for it. And then we can go on, for instance, to this handwritten BSR number 5 that I paid $15 last year for last year at Brimfield. So, oh yeah, we are not cheap. We are frugal. Yeah, that's one word for it. Frugal. Basically, what you really want to do is look for those mom and pop vendors who often have piles of rusty junk to sort through, because I've got a couple of tales from that. I can think, in fact, of one incredible score that I made for $10 at Brimfield. Let's move over a little bit. And that would be none other than, where is it? Oh, there it is. That would be the Griswold Dutch oven, the number 8 Dutch oven, large logo, that I actually found at Brimfield for $10. It was, in fact, at the bottom of a pile of rusty junk. It was heavily coated with rust, and you could barely see the Griswold logo. And that obviously is why I was able to score this one for $10. I remember I put this one in electrolysis. I probably kept it in electrolysis for 2 or 3 days, and it worked. It actually cleaned it up, and even though it's all covered with seasoning, I believe the surface, in fact, is dotted with tiny pinhole like pock marks all over the surface, probably actually from the rust, in fact, but you wouldn't know it from the way you cook in it. And yeah, one thing I will say, ugh, the first time I cooked in a Griswold Dutch oven, I was astounded by the smooth surface. It was incredibly different from cooking in a rougher lodge cast iron Dutch oven. And I think I better say something there. I have said time and time again that I love cooking in my lodge cookware, and I do, with the rough surface and all. There's absolutely nothing wrong with cooking in a large Dutch oven. I do it. I still do that all the time. It was just incredible to feel my spatula sliding across the smooth surface of this Griswold Dutch oven. So since then, this I have to say, this Griswold has indeed become one of the most useful and valuable items in my kitchen for that reason. I continue to use my large Dutch ovens, but I really enjoy using this Griswold. The lid did not come with it. The lid, in fact, was given to me. I'm still shocked to say, as a present by a cast iron person who on the cast iron cooking group. In fact, I did not ask for it, but he insisted on sending it to me as a gift. So, unfortunately, there was then some drama afterwards. All too often, drama and politics really ruin friendships of all kinds, but it was actually not related to this. But the point being was that I managed to score for $10 a Griswold Dutch oven at Brimfield, because that's the really what you want to do. As I said, is you want to look through those rusty piles of junk. And they will show up everywhere from the beginning of Brimfield all the way to the end. One thing I noticed, and I pointed out in my video last year, in fact, about Brimfield, is that at about the halfway point of the show, there is the big food court where they have their carny food booths, of course, and you can buy overpriced. The usual stuff, your sausages, your pizzas, and all the rest of that. Right? And of course, it's overpriced. It's carny stuff. What do you expect? But and some of it is actually pretty darn good. However, once you pass by the food court there and get into the other end of Brimfield, the environment there changes a little bit. There seem to be more large lots on the far end of the Brimfield show that have more of these big piles of rusty junk to sort through. So, I mean, you can find that everywhere at Brimfield from the beginning to the end. Those types of things seem to be more prevalent when you get more towards the end part of the show from the beginning. So it's just something to keep in mind, and it's worth making it all the way to the other side of Brimfield because I have definitely made some scores there at that end of Brimfield. No question about that. Louis J. Cast Iron Cooking. When I first used a vintage smooth pan, I immediately saw the reason why people love vintage ironware. Oh, yeah, I know. Doesn't it feel great? There are very slight advantages to using the smooth ironware. No denying that. But as far as cooking is concerned, really, they're only very slight advantages. You can still make great stuff in a modern day lodge. And that's one reason why I didn't hesitate to get the Liberty, or the Walking Liberty skillet today, the other day, in fact. So, okay, which is another subject. Dang, I wish someone would send me a gift. I have 2 large Dutch ovens, but only 1 lid. My granny accidentally cracked one of the lids. Oh, but she kept it anyway. Boy, I can only guess. Did she drop it or something? Yeah, come across any CHF trivets? I have not. I do not recall seeing any Chicago Hardware Foundry trivets. So, what do you think of Lodge's American flag skillet? I think it looks great. I mean, it's got a really nice design to it. I myself was fortunate enough to jump and get the 2018 Lodge Made in America skillet with the flag on it, which I've used a number of times since 2018, and I'm very glad to own it. For that reason, for me personally, I'm not going to be getting the new Lodge flag skillet because I have a Lodge Made in America American flag skillet. On the other hand, now they're obviously going to be making that skillet indefinitely and not just this year, which is good. And so I would, if you really want a collector's item skillet like that, I would indeed encourage you to get it because, and again, don't just hang it on the wall, although you can do that. You please use it. It's a cast iron pan and it will work great in the kitchen. So, I did another video a few years ago as well about these collector's item skillets from Lodge, and I made some comments about that. I like them. There is no question at all that they are hardly invaluable, and that they are made especially to appeal to the collector's market. That's different than, say, finding a vintage Griswold, for instance. You find a vintage Griswold, you know you've got a great score, especially because it's rare and antique, as opposed again to the modern day Lodge pans being made for the collector's market. But what's wrong with that? They're really not that expensive. They're great cast iron pans. They work great in the kitchen and they will last for the rest of your life. In fact, I do have a special reason for owning that 2018 American Flag Lodge skillet. That was 2018 was the year my godson was born. And I got one of those skillets and presented it to him on his mother's baby shower, in fact, as a present, with a little note saying, "Dear CJ," and that's all I'm going to call him, Baby Bear. You know, this is a very special frying pan because it's as old as you are, and it has the year that you were born on it. So as long as you have this, and as long as you use it, you will know it's as old as you are, and that makes it very special. So yes, I do encourage folks, if you feel you've got enough reason to get it, you know, that if you're not a hoarder, which I'm not. No, I promise I'm not. um and if you don't mind getting something that's essentially you're getting it for the design on the bottom, but again, it will still make a great pan in the kitchen, and I encourage you to use it. So yes, the Lodge Made in America American flag skillet. It's a great thing to have, especially with with Memorial Day and the 4th of July coming up. Or the Cracker Barrel made by Lodge Walking Liberty skillet, which I think is the best design I've seen from the Cracker Barrel series in the last several years, in fact. I passed up on a few of those um, Cracker Barrel skillets because, quite frankly, I personally found the design on the bottom to be, well, kind of garish and cartoonish. But that's only my feelings. Other folks may have liked them, and they've every reason to get them. So, for instance, oh, you don't want him yawning all of a sudden. For instance, a couple of years ago in 2019, Cracker Barrel released a skillet saying the Midnight Ride of Paul Revere. And I got that one largely because of my New England heritage. So, so you have your own reasons for getting those, and they're not bad reasons. So, okay, what else do we have here? Debbie, how many pieces do you have of cast iron? I have a lot, but not like I've seen some have. Yeah, I'm not ashamed to say I think my collection is probably somewhere over 100 pieces. So, and there are folks out there whose collections would put mine to shame. But again, that's to each their own. If you only have one cast iron pan that you use on a regular basis, good for you. You are still very much welcome in this crowd because you are using the world's best cookware. So, CI Cast Iron Fanatic, do you ever sell or trade cast iron or just collect for your personal use? Most of the time, I collect for my own personal use. I have sold a few pieces once in a while. But I have not tried to make a living on it, and I have not done so on a regular basis. Um, Here I am yawning again. Sorry. A couple of Brimfield finds I've gifted away. At least one or two I know I've sold. Um, for instance, last year at Brimfield, I came across a number 8 ugly hammered pan that I ended up giving away in a live giveaway on this channel, in fact. I've gotten several pieces for Brimfield that I gave to my family as Christmas presents. I got the Wagner segmented breakfast skillet and gave it to my brother as a present, for instance, as a Christmas present. And to be honest, I'm not even sure if he's used it, but so it goes. Oh, excuse me. Boy, why am I yawning all of a sudden? I'm very sorry. Okay, let's start moving around here. All right. Peg tooth. I found a white enamel trivet this week. Free on top of a skip. It followed me home. Well, yeah, free is about the best price you can get. So, what in the world are they doing outside now? Probably some car that's stopped nearby. Anyway. Okay, so are most Brimfield items unseasoned, and do you get better deals if they are rusty? Um, it depends on where you find them. There are some professional vendors there who do season up those pans. Good grief, I'm sure you can hear that stupid music outside. Anyway, there are some Brimfield vendors there who they're the ones who sell their pans at the incredible prices, like hundreds and hundreds of dollars. Most of them, their pans are well polished and seasoned, and you could probably start cooking with them right away. There are quite a few mom and pop vendors who do not do that, and yes, there are in fact piles of rusty junk to sort through, and you can almost always get the better bargain in that way. Not always, but you never know. Because really, just about any kind of vendor you will find at Brimfield, including someone who would sell a rusty Griswold I don't know, number 8 small logo or something with a $75 price tag. Because, well, it's cast iron and it's Griswold. That's all he knows about. So, all right. Having said that, Christine Borgatti, and hello. I have 4 pans I got in 1971 with smooth insides. I think I got them from Sears, and I would not be surprised at all. So, CIC, where did you get Lightning and Stumpy? Um, lightning I found at an antique. Yeah, that's right, at an antique store in Sweetwater, Tennessee. Yeah, now it comes to mind. That's right. That was one of my yearly trips to the. Oh, good, the music stopped. That was one of my yearly trips to the National Cornbread Festival. In that one, I was lucky in that I managed to find two BSR handwritten skillets, a 7S and the other number 7, which happens to be lightning, and I believe lightning is 7P, which is a real regular BSR number 7. It was let me see. They're in the town of Sweetwater, Tennessee. There is one of those huge flea markets that is the building is probably about a quarter mile in length, where you can walk and walk and walk, and there are a whole bunch of vendors there. Also, right outside, there were a couple of antique stores, most of which were selling incredibly rusty stuff, but at some reasonable prices. That was where I found lightning, in fact. I think I paid $15 for it because I knew what I was getting, of course. So I'm sure some folks probably could have even haggled, but I was happy enough to pay $15 for old lightning there. Stumpy, on the other hand, I actually got off of eBay. This was several years ago when BSR pans were largely unknown on eBay. I am getting tired of that music, that's for sure. Um, on eBay, oh, good, it's gone again. Anyway, several years ago, pretty much when this whole cast iron renaissance was taking off, there were a lot of unknown cast iron pans on eBay, and I was lucky to have some knowledge. So I managed to get a decent score on what I thought was a Red Mountain number 14. Turned out to be Stumpy, who is actually a Century Series number 14. So. Peg tooth. I'm going to e-tank my lodge stuff, kitchen chef, this week with using an old school battery charger. Well, the best of luck, and you will certainly get it nice and clean and stripped down. So, Debbie, I have Lodge, Griswold, a BSR, Wagner's, and some gated pieces, but I don't have 100 of them, just a few, and have been bought since I've been married for 48 years. You're probably a smarter person than I am, quite frankly. In my case, my collection is the result of having a hobby that is easily addictive and being single with quite literally nobody to tell me, no, you can't do that. And so as a result, I ended up with this big rack full of cast iron. Do you prefer heavier, thicker pans or the thin light? I'm guessing the first because of your BSR passion. On the whole, I think I'm agreeing with you, Mike. I think I personally prefer the heavier, thicker pans. I think they heat better. I think they heat more evenly, and I'm used to the weight as well. So I like cooking on those thick, heavy pans. Having said that, I have several light pans. I have the Lodge Blacklock, for instance, from just a few years ago. I have these gate mark pans that are thin. I have several Griswolds in my collection as well. And I do my best to try to rotate through all of them. Turner Fowler, I got two Wagner Sydney O number 8 skillets in perfect condition. I also have two vintage Lodge cornstick pans in perfect condition and one Griswold cornstick pan in perfect condition. Well, congratulations then. You certainly know how to take care of your cast iron too. That's always good. And you also say, I keep finding Wagner in Texas. I'm having a hard time finding Martin Stove and Range. Yeah. Um, well, Martin Stove and Range was from Alabama. I managed a few years ago to find a Martin number 8 here in Massachusetts. I found it at a church what do they call those? Thrift store, in fact, and I ended up paying $5 for it, which, quite frankly, I think was a pretty good find. I ended up giving that Martin away to a friend in Tennessee, in fact. So you never know when you're going to come across them. I guess that's the best way. How do you like black log? I love the black log. The black log is nice and thin and light, easy to hold, and it's especially because of its shape, it makes a good breakfast chef skillet. If I was going to make an omelet, for instance, I would want to reach for that black log pan first for precisely that reason. I have made omelets in my thicker pans, but I think I would prefer that thin black log for as a chef skillet for making omelets. And let's see, going through here. Janet Batista. All I have are a few large Carolina cooker bunt pan. My only vintage piece I own is a Griswold Wagner muffin pan. Well, there's nothing wrong with that. The important thing is you get some good use out of it. For instance, you've got yourself a cast iron bunt pan, which a lot of people don't have. And despite the fact that Carolina cooker has a rougher surface, I dare say you've made some pretty good cakes in that. So, Honey Badger, I picked up a large Cornbread Festival 25th anniversary skillet. Number 5's, but I'm scrambling eggs in it as soon as possible. Yeah, I kind of regret not going to the National Cornbread Festival this year. I committed myself to not going largely because of the gas prices. And then I've seen videos from a number of you folks all having had a great time at the National Cornbread Festival. So yeah, I do regret not going. But that's my fault, which is also one reason why I'm determined, if possible, to head out to Brimfield this weekend, especially so that I don't miss it. I'm not going out to look for anything because my collection is so big as it is. And yet, who knows what I'll find. After all, last year at Brimfield, again, I made that second Brimfield video. I was not expecting to find a bunt pan or cake pan. I was not expecting to find a huge vintage Wagner aluminum roaster, but I found them. And so as a result, they are here. You never know when what's going to turn up and when. So what's that say? Papa Dan, sorry, I got called away for long distance telephone call from 91-year-old family friend. Well, congratulations. And I'm back now. Yes. Hi, Bruno. Val's Black Cats rules. Good grief. I've still barely scratched the surface of most of the stories of these ones here. I've mentioned a couple of these, for instance. Over here, for example, is a number 9, completely unmarked Wagner chicken fryer. It has absolutely no markings at all on the bottom. The real key to identifying this in this case is the round hole, which is very unusual for vintage American cast iron. It was because of this that folks there helped to identify this as an unmarked Wagner. I remember finding this at Brimfield at a rare vendor who was actually selling his things at decent prices. I went into this one particular vendor's booth, and he announced, and there were signs saying half off of everything except the furniture. And that included the cast iron pieces that he had. And he had quite a few good pieces. At one point, in fact, and I know I showed this in the video, I had right next to me in his booth a Wagner marked chicken fryer and a Wagner unmarked chicken fryer, both of which had $40 price tags, both of which he was selling at half price for $20 each. So I ended up getting the unmarked chicken fryer because it was a little bigger. The Wagner marked chicken fryer was an 8. The unmarked chicken fryer was a 9. Why didn't you get both? Because I don't need 2 chicken fryers. So I'm not trying to resell everything. And as I've said already, I have too much cast iron here as it is. So no, I did not need 2 chicken fryers. And I can go on mentioning that there's, of course, as you know, cast iron, in fact, is really pretty much in a very small part of all of the incredible finds you can make at Brimfield, pretty much no matter what your hobby is. In my case, for instance, this is one of my favorite kitchen items. A wok shovel, or a chan, in fact. I found this at Brimfield for $5. I do not know if it's vintage, but I threw this in the lye tank and it sat in the lye tank for an entire winter. I took it out, cleaned it up, and I have been using it ever since. I've shown this one before. It has some interesting markings on the back, on the front, in fact. That say, what does it say? It says made, yeah, it says Hong Kong, for instance. And a couple of other initials as well. I do not, as I said, I don't know if it's vintage. All I know is it's very light, and I have really enjoyed using this in my wok, and I found it at Brimfield. Also at Brimfield, this was a score I've talked about a couple of times. A vintage K-bar chef knife. And here's the logo right about here. So yeah, this is a 10-inch chef knife. Very thin, very light. And thanks to the person who sharpened it for me, very sharp as well. So, yeah, I found this at a vendor who was especially dealing in, well, knives, old tools, some military memorabilia, all of those kind of things. And he had this with a $20 price tag. And I showed it to him, and I remember him saying, yeah, I can't knock the price down on that because it's a K-bar. So he knows K-bar knives. But nonetheless, I agreed to pay for it, and because of that, I am lucky enough to have a K-bar chef knife. And I have gotten quite a bit of use out of this, and I'm quite glad to own it. Once again, this was a Brimfield score. So yeah, I mean, that's why I've been trying to drag my family, my friends, pretty much everybody I know to Brimfield at one time or another, because no matter what your interests are, you will find something there that appeals to you. It will be a lot of fun no matter what your interests. And really, it's like there's so much stuff here. I mean, heck, I could say, for instance, I was just literally walking by one booth when I came across this, and it had a $10 price tag. So, of course, I grabbed it. This was before even I was able to figure out what it was. And it turned out to be a BSR 2-quart saucepan with a lid, no less. The lid came with it. And this just happened to be a $10 score because, again, the vendor didn't know what he was selling. On the other hand, as I've talked about before, there are those vendors with those racks of incredibly priced but incredibly beautiful cast iron. And even there, besides the fact that it's great to browse through, there is still the possibility you could come across that one item that you've been looking for most of your life. And if you feel that it may be worth that heavy investment, well, you may end up getting it. Like, for instance, it was at one of those kind of vendors that I got this BSR Red Mountain lid to match my BSR Red Mountain pan. I think I paid $35 just for this lid, which I do not regret in the least bit because I have gotten a lot of use out of this lid. So and so it goes. One thing that I've seen in abundance at Brimfield, although the prices of these have gone up along with so many other things, and that would be these kitchen kettles. These gate marked kettles here. Quite a few vendors at Brimfield will have one of these on sale and they'll usually call them cauldrons, which technically is true. But in a lot of instances, they will have a ridiculous price tag on them. Here is that word again, ridiculous. Could range anywhere from $50 to $100 to $175. No, I would not pay that much for one of these. And because yes, they are really nice and they're really useful. They were made as throwaway items. They were part of kitchen sets that were included as bonuses when people bought stoves in the 19th century, late 19th century. This one I managed to score for $20 at Brimfield. It was painted green and it had a thick coating of rust on the inside. It had obviously been used as a planter, yet it was one of those few gate marked pots of this kind that did not have the bottom have holes punched in the bottom, and the bottom was not rusted out. So this thing again, I'm thinking it took a couple of weeks at least to restore this. I mean, a long time in electrolysis, but was finally worth it. And in fact, this is one of those pieces that I tried to sell because for the longest time it sat there and I had no use for it. I even took this to it, there was a time about 3 or 4 years ago, in fact, I had so much stuff in my give it away pile, so much extra stuff in my collection. I really wanted to trim down my collection. And I ended up managed to get like maybe about somewhere between 20 to 30 pieces. And I took them to a local big flea market. This was one of them. I set up a stand at that flea market on a Sunday morning. I set up my stand at 6:30 in the morning. By 8:30 in the morning, I was completely cleared out. I mentioned I had almost 20 to 30 pieces. I had 4 pieces left by 8:30 in the morning. The reason for that is because one of the Brimfield vendors, in fact, swooped down and grabbed my stuff. He didn't steal it. He didn't rob me or anything like that. He came right in and said, "I'll give you $150 for pretty much let me take my choice." And he took a large part of that collection for $150. Then he came back again about 20 minutes later and bought almost all of the rest. So for like another $40 or so. So for $200, I cleared out my collection, that stuff. And I didn't mind it because my whole point was I wanted to get rid of all those pieces. So even though he really got a cut rate deal, especially since if you go to Brimfield, you will see that guy there. I've no doubt about that. And the pieces that he took from me, he is, of course, selling at like about 10 times the price that he paid me for it. However, the reason why I'm saying all this is that this is one of those pieces that I actually had set up at that stand. He did not take this. He did not want this one. He said there was no way he could sell it, so he left it behind. With about 2 or 3 other pieces that I ended up taking home as well, including a large Dutch oven. I really had no idea what to use this particular piece for, and that's why I decided to simply make it a kitchen utensil crock. So that's why I keep my big utensils in this particular pan here, or pot, I should say. Anyway, that is yet another Brimfield story. um, yeah, why aren't gate marked items not more prized? A lot of times because people don't know what they are. Usually antique vendors will try to sell these things just because they're old. They really don't know who made them. But especially with cast iron, I mean, cast iron is considered to be gold by some antique vendors, no matter what it is. The general rule is old is good, big is good, but old and big are better. So as a result, you will see these gate mark pieces being sold still at inflated prices, like just about everything these days, but they don't know who made them. So at most, they will simply say vintage antique pan, and they'll probably throw in a couple of silly words like cowboy, chuck wagon, Civil War as a way to try to emphasize it's a rare 19th century antique when they try to sell it to you at an overrated price. So remember, those pans were generally considered to be throwaways in those days. They're not throwaways now, especially for having survived all this time. But that's a very general synopsis of the origin of those kind of pans. So, War in Ukraine. I've only come across a gate marked piece once, and it was sadly cracked. Yeah. As I mentioned, my two gate marked skillets here were also cracked. I did what most people don't do, and I took the time and expense to have them welded. And it was actually fairly expensive, too. Welding cast iron is not easy. A lot of repair shops refuse to do it because it's so difficult. I was lucky in that I came across a professional who was going to do a really good job. In fact, I brought my two pieces to him, and he said he would do them for $75 each. And I said, I can't afford to do both of them. Just do the big one. And he said, okay, then I'll do both of them for $75. And I said, okay. And so as a result, he ended up repairing those two cast iron pans, of which I am very much glad about that. I have yet to see a gate marked piece in the wild. Well, you never know. I've got a gate marked pot in my other room that I use as a coin holder, or like a change pot. It's gate marked. It was originally enameled, in fact, an enameled gate mark piece, and I got it for $5. Um, because it was enameled, an enameled 19th century piece, there was absolutely no way I was ever going to cook in that, because of the known fact that quite a few enameled cast iron pieces from the 19th century had lead in the glaze, the enamel glaze. So I actually did something that some people consider, and what's the word? Anathema. Basically some people shy away from. I took that particular gate marked enamel piece to a sandblaster and had the enamel completely sandblasted off. And I just use that as a change drawer, change pot, and throw extra coins and other change into that. But it's gate marked, and I managed to pay $5 for it. So
It's funny, that's what I'm doing right now.
yeah, you're getting change right now.
Yeah, no, putting it in.
Oh yeah. It is possible to find gate marked pieces in the wild, and you never know if and when it's going to happen. So I don't have any other answer about that. Debbie Pegtooth, I have found two, one at a thrift store and the other at an estate sale. I paid less than $15 for both. Yes, that's exactly the point I'm making here. So, and hello, Anthony Vaccaro. Well, I'm glad you like the cornbread videos. Which do you prefer the taste of? Pans that look like corn on the cobs, or the wedges from your 8-piece pan? It's the recipe I use. They taste the same. They cook at different rates, though. I will say that the corn stick pan will cook very quickly because you can only make very thin pieces with that. So the wedge pan will take a little longer to cook, and you get thicker pieces as opposed to simply cooking in a skillet. Oh, here I go yawning again. Sorry. My favorite cornbread recipe is a sweet northern cornbread recipe because I'm a Yankee at heart. And also because I grew up eating sweet cornbread. I had never had southern savory cornbread until I started making it myself several years ago. So I'm more used to the sweet taste. And for me, that's the cornbread that I grew up on. So I have a recipe for skillet cornbread on my website, which is my go-to cornbread recipe. So I'm quite happy about that. Papa Dan, what is the most unusual cast iron piece that you've seen at Brimfield? Not bought, just seen. And good luck on finding BSR number 13 Camp Oven Bottom. Yeah. Unusual? I've seen some of those vendors selling the professional vendors have some incredible pieces. I guess that's the best way to say it. Thanks to those vendors, I've been able to see and touch and hold some incredible cast iron pieces. I can't afford to buy them, but I'm still able to do so. But I'm glad I had the opportunity to actually hold those in my hand for whatever. You could take that whatever way you want. Maybe the most unusual cast iron piece I've seen was not at Brimfield. It was, and I've talked about this one before. It was at the Factory Antique Mall in Staunton, Virginia, a place that calls itself the largest antique mall on the East Coast. I don't know if that's true or not, but it's a pretty impressive place. In that particular antique mall, I came across one of the rare number 16 skillets. And those of you who know what I'm talking about know what I'm talking about. Those huge unknown pans that with a big number 16 for the size number. And that thing was a monster. It must have weighed at least 30 pounds or more empty, dry. And it was tough to pick up. I believe it had like a $250 price tag. Obviously, I was not interested enough in it to want to pay that much for it. But I'm glad I had the opportunity again to see it in person and hold it. Which I think, if I had a gate mark until the cat knocked it off the counter, at least that's how I remembered it. I went into the, you had one, Bob asked. It went into the trash in 3 pieces. Oh, my condolences. It's really not much more I can say about that. So I guess you could say at least that hasn't happened again. Which I think I had better bring up my greatest Brimfield find, which is probably, I consider to be the greatest piece in my collection. Yes, that one. And I found it at Brimfield. And this is one reason why I can only say again, you never know what you're going to find at Brimfield and be able to afford. So let's turn the camera and let's take a look. At a cabinet. No, not me. This. And there it is. The Savory 15 gallon. Hold still, damn it. Okay, let me tighten this. There we go. The Savory Company 15-gallon cauldron. And I found this at Brimfield. This thing here, it says here, Savory and Company, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. It is definitely gate marked. It is definitely heavy. This thing here weighs 75 pounds. Nope, I'm great. Okay. Sorry, I forgot to bring the microphone over. Anyway, the Savory and Company, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, 15-gallon cast iron cauldron. This thing here is heavy. Boy, is this thing heavy. It weighs 75 pounds empty. And I will never forget when I took that thing out into the woods to cook a big, to do a video of cooking a big pot of jambalaya. I barely escaped breaking my thumb on this thing. In fact, it kind of slipped in my hand and bent my thumb back. If I had maybe, I don't know, not a fraction of an inch, but slightly less room to maneuver, that thing definitely would have broken my thumb. But it didn't. So all I could say again is that I've got myself, again, this was a find at Brimfield. And here is the thing, is that you never know. Those of you who have seen these huge 19th century gate marked cauldrons, whether it's online at antique malls, you know they sell these things at incredible prices. I found this exact one, in fact, as well at the Bouckville, Rochester, New York Antique Week Fair. And that one had a price tag of $600 of it on it. You've seen pots like this selling on eBay for $1,000 plus shipping. That was why I remember coming across this at Brimfield and my jaw dropped. And I went to the vendor and I remember saying, I doubt I can afford it, but how much are you selling it for? $200. And my jaw dropped. And then I spent a good 5 or 10 minutes pretty much standing there thinking and debating. That's a lot of money. That's still a lot of money. But I can afford it. I could actually afford $200. Is it worth spending $200 for a big, heavy, incredible cast iron pot like this, essentially what it came down to is if I walked away from this, I would probably be regretting it for the rest of my life. And that was why I decided to make the investment and got this for $200 at Brimfield. I had to drive my car out to the lot where that vendor was, and I had to actually get that thing home. And I actually had to make a big project of cleaning it up, but I did. And as a result, this is, again, probably the greatest item in my collection and the oldest, the heaviest, maybe the most valuable. And I found it at Brimfield. And I feel like I got an incredible bargain for it. So, which again comes down to you never know what you're going to get. All right, let me back up and do a couple of comments on this, I guess. So, anyway, that is my story, and I'm sticking to it for this big cast iron cauldron here. Let's see here. Cast iron junction. I have a smaller 4-gallon Marietta Gatemark oval cauldron with lid. Well, congratulations. I've seen a 2-gallon of those Marietta pots. They are nice. Yes. So, well, I'm hoping you get a lot of good use out of it. So, I could cook the dog and the cat in that one. My cat jumped into that one a couple of times. No, not when it was hot. Is there a lid for it? Okay. Here is the lid that I got for it. It's an aluminum lid that I found at a restaurant store. Happens to fit it exactly. I forget. I believe this is about 22 inches in diameter, the actual opening on the top. And I spent quite a long time looking for a cast iron lid. I even went to Cabela's. You know how Cabela's has or I'm not sure if they've discontinued it or not, but you may remember Cabela's when they sold a big 20-inch cast iron lid. And it cost about $35. I got that lid especially for this cauldron, and it broke my heart when that lid was maybe a fraction of an inch too small. It did not fit snugly on it. It was close, but not snug. And it just broke my heart. So, meanwhile, as it turned out, as I mentioned, let me lift this up, in fact, so you can see it from the top angle. Yeah, tip everything over. Why don't I? This lid, on the other hand, fits almost perfectly. Almost perfectly. There we go. Hold on, let me do this right. There. But it fits good enough on this that, there we go, that I am happy with it. And that's the lid that I've used for making jambalaya and stuff in this big cauldron. So, yeah, nice 15-gallon cauldron. Yeah, I'm actually very, very proud of it. Yes. Debbie, Pyrex here, Pegtooth is made of gold. They're crazy prices here. Goodwill and thrift stores still have mismatched ones, but a set will set you back 100 or more. Yes, indeed, there is quite a market for vintage Pyrex, that's for sure. So, do those things need lids? Well, yes. If you're gonna cook good food in a Dutch oven, you need a lid. And that includes, again, things like jambalaya or Brunswick stew or a booyah. So yes, in that respect, you still need a lid. So I wish there was a 12-step program for the cast iron fever. Yeah, I know. As I mentioned, I don't have a problem. But as they like to say, if your idea of a 12-step program requires taking 12 steps to move past all the cast iron in your home, you might have cast ironitis. So anyway, the best I could say, yeah, trouble. Yes, exactly. He's jumped into that pot a couple of times. How did you get it back to your vehicle? Like I said, I drove my vehicle to the lot and then loaded it onto there. How? Very carefully. Yeah, it was an adventure to get it home, but I managed to do so. Each time I take this thing out of the house, it's an adventure. All right. Illustrated book. Yeah. Yeah, the viewers are awesome. Yes, definitely. All hail trouble. Like I said, that weighs 75 pounds, cast iron junction. Christine Bergatti, I have some Fenton glassware from there. Peg tooth. Oh, I didn't know anything about gate marked until I started watching YouTube. Believe me, I will not pay a lot of money for cast iron. Some folks will, but I'm cheap. And there's nothing wrong with that, because you know what it really comes down to? Well, of course, it really comes down to our personal preferences. If somebody wants to make a big collection of vintage cast iron, that's their right to do so. If you just want to get a few pans and use them, you have every right to do so. And I salute you, in fact, for having the will and the resolve to have only a cast iron collection that is useful, does not take up tons and tons of space, and and nonetheless gets you a whole lot of great cooked food, because that's really what it all comes down to. Oi. Anyway, my whole thing was found a couple beautiful turquoise Pyrex bowls for $2 at a yard sale under a bundle of, what's that say, men's ties. And they sell for 50 online. Yeah, well, congratulations. That, as they say, is a score. How did you clean and season the cauldron? Um, very carefully. Let me see if I remember right. I did it in two parts. That was when I got my lye tank, which is a huge, something like a 60-gallon plastic trash container. I got it especially to fit this thing. I soaked that thing for weeks on end and finally managed to clean it out completely. Took a lot of elbow grease, and then I mounted it over a gas burner and did my best to clean the outside as well and season it. I've got a couple of videos about that. There's one, in fact, that does show seasoning that big cauldron just about a week or so before I took it out to make jambalaya. So, when was the last time you used that 15-gallon, 75-pound cauldron? About a year and a half ago. Again, that video is right there on my YouTube channel. It's the one that says jambalaya in a cast iron cauldron. Especially because of the pandemic. Oh God, because of the pandemic, make it more like 2 years ago. But especially because of the pandemic, I have been lacking in reasons to use it. I would very much like another reason to use this. When my father passed away and they had a big memorial service for him, I was proud to take that cauldron out and cook jambalaya for them for the memorial service. As I mentioned, I've made those jambalaya videos. I would love the opportunity to, say, maybe around the 4th of July or something, take part in some kind of a big city cookout, like maybe the city or even a big church or something would have a big charity cookout of the kind where everybody in the world comes around and they all make the usual hot dogs and burgers and all the rest of that. I would love to do that and make a big pot of jambalaya for that kind of a thing. And hopefully it'll happen. Yeah, there are still people that won't gouge you for money. Exactly. Well, somewhere over the rainbow. Well, it's been an hour and 23 minutes. We're getting around to that time, and my voice is getting a little hoarse too. So, did your show footage of your trip to find new items to save? I haven't gone yet. That, as I said, I am planning on going to Brimfield this coming Saturday, and just basically having a good time, looking at all the cast iron. Maybe try to put a video together as best I can. I am not really out to look for anything. On the other hand, if I find a good bargain, well, I don't know, maybe I'll get it. I mean, after all, I was not looking for a cast iron bunt pan last year. No way I was going to pass that up. I was not looking for a big Wagner aluminum roaster, and couldn't pass that up. So, one thing I would like to do at every Bugs Bunny cartoon where they're cooking rabbit stew, they always have a cauldron like that. One thing I would love to see at Brimfield is a get together of some kind where cast iron nerds, excuse me, cast iron fans like us get together at maybe the food court or something just to say hi and share some of the overpriced meals and generally talk about our Brimfield finds. I would love that to happen. Haven't been able to manage it yet, but who knows? Meanwhile, I'm just out to go and have some fun this weekend, and that's really what it comes down to. I've mentioned this a couple of times, but that is the most important thing about the hunt. It's fun. Making those scores is fantastic, but you can go a long time. We're talking weeks or months in the hunt before you find a good score, and in order to in order for it to be fun, the hunt itself has to be fun. You have to enjoy doing things like going out to fairs and yard sales and antique stores and just browsing through loads and loads of crap and seeing things like a $60 heat damaged Griswold number 5 pan, small logo pan, and stuff like that. You have to enjoy it, and I do. It's moment, yeah. I mean, just the browsing is fun. Having the time going out there is fun. The hunt is fun, and especially those finds definitely do make it worth it. But really, the whole thing is fun. And that's really what it comes down to. And yes, are they fun cooking with them? That's actually really what it comes down to them, even more than making the finds. The reason why we make the finds is because, yes, it's worth it, because they are great for cooking. All right. Hello, Miss French Twist. Unfortunately, as you can hear, my voice is starting to give out. I think we are getting into that time, I'm afraid, because, yeah, we're past an hour and 26 minutes. And I've been talking about how great Brimfield is, and I think it's worth it. And I very much encourage everybody here at some point or another to go on the hunt, whether it's going to Brimfield, whether it's going to one of those highway yard sales down south, whether it's maybe spending a morning going around looking through yard sales or flea markets or estate sales. Just have fun in the hunt, because really, that if it's not fun, why do it? And I don't think there's really much else to say about that. So sorry about that, Miss French Twist. But that's really what it comes down to. That's what this whole hobby comes down to. It's about having fun. The food is fantastic, but if it wasn't fun, there'd really be no reason to do it. So, and having said that, again, I think we have pretty much covered our subject here. I've talked and talked and talked and showed off some nice cast iron, and I'm hoping to find some more cast iron. And I encourage you folks to do so too. If you're lucky enough to live within driving distance of Brimfield, hey, who knows? Maybe I'll see you on Saturday, because the weather is supposed to be great. So yeah, that would definitely make for a good outing. So all I can say now is just enjoy yourselves, folks. Thank you so much for showing up. Enjoy your cast iron. Enjoy really everything here. Show the rack. Okay, there's the rack. So yeah, after I cleaned off all of this Brimfield stuff, the rack actually looks a lot more empty than usual. But now I've got to spend an hour putting it all back on the rack. And having said that, yes, thank you everybody, Pawpaw Dan and Val's Black Cats and Debbie and Miss French Twist, so many more for making this chat, for making these live videos fun. And having said all that, well, what can we say is like, have a good evening, everybody. We'll see you all next Wednesday.